everyone. This is Brendan Magnan, Chair of the Milford Inlands Wetlands Commission, calling to order the October 15th, 2025 public hearing and meeting of the Inlands Wetlands Agency. Lisa, please call the roll.
Please you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, just Brian Black.
Here.
Jim Connors.
Here.
Matthew Connors.
Here.
Nick Ritchie.
Here.
Julie Valvo.
Here.
Buddy Field.
Here.
Ray Gradwell. Ranjit Bahav. Dan Bedecker. Brendan Magnan.
Here. Thank you. Let's see. Commissioner Field, could you serve as voting alternate this evening?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Maros. Do you mind putting the agenda up for us?
Sure, hold on just one second.
While that's happening, I'll just do the preamble that, as pursuant to our normal meetings, this meeting is being broadcast on YouTube. It will be recorded, is being recorded, will be made available on the City of Milford website pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont's executive orders. I don't have to speak to this ad nauseum, but please, as a reminder, we're here to regulate the inlands, wetlands, and zoning issues are out of our purview. We will now invite everyone to stand and view the flag and unmute yourselves and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. If you could all go back on mute. Just going to introduce item, if Maros, you can just share the agenda one more time. First up on the agenda is item 1, that's IW 250036, 34 Buick Avenue, map 66, block 825, parcel 16 for 34 Buick Avenue LLC. This is a continued public hearing, and it is a continued public hearing on the limited items that were discussed and at the last public hearing. As a reminder, this public hearing was initially opened on July 16th and has been continued through this evening. I'm going to briefly just mention that we are here only to evaluate the wetlands, watercourses, and as defined under state law. We're not here to debate the merits of an application relative to the desirability or undesirability of a proposed development, density, traffic, etc. At this time, I'd like to introduce the applicant. We're going to get right into the protocol that we've been applying. The same protocol applies. I'm not going to repeat it. If anybody veers from the protocol, I will tell you and we will proceed from there. So at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to present their responses to the open issues that were left open from the hearing on October 1st. And I hand the floor over to Mr. Crusaden or
Yes, yeah, good. Just quickly, and I apologize, my video keeps going in and out, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, and Mary Rose and staff, Kevin Crusaden, 243 Broad Street here in Milford. With me tonight is Mr. Bob Weway, the engineer, Jeff Gordon, and also Matthew Pop. And I'm just going to let Bob get right into it with those responses. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Weway.
Okay, good evening. My name is Robert Weway, professional engineer and principal with the firm of Coda Spody and Associates. Basically, I'm going to try to keep this as short as we can. We basically provided 3 sets of response comments to various parties. One was your city engineer. The second set of response comments were with regards to public comments as well as commission comments. And the final set of response comments were with regards to Mr. Trinkas's review that was submitted late yesterday. So with that being said, I'll start off with the public and commission comments that were part of the October 1st hearing. Now, there were a number of questions that were raised by the public during their portion of the hearing. And many of the questions were not necessarily pertaining directly to the wetlands, but I'll try to address them the best I can as we go. So the first item was with regards to the overburden for cell 1 being undefined, and that's basically been identified on sheet SP3 of the drawings, which is the soil erosion sediment control plan, and that has basically the sequence of construction for both the site as well as the permeable pavers. And as part of that, the overburden is specified in there as being a 12-inch thick layer of sand aggregate or other sacrificial material. And basically, we've provided notes in there that the overburden should be inspected on a weekly basis, checking for rutting and any loss of material. And if that is noted, then it could be supplemented as required during the course of the project. There was also a question raised with regards to the 2 existing barns, which are proposed to be removed, and the effect that they would have on the overburden and also on the paver cell areas. These structures have no basements with them, and at present time it's unknown how deep the foundation walls go into the ground, if at all. Given the age of the structures, a lot of times those were built slab at grade, and then the barn structures were just put up on top of that. But with that being said, the superstructure would be demolished and then disposed of off-site. That would leave the existing concrete slabs, and what we would recommend is that the slabs remain in place during construction, and that would eliminate the need for overburden within those 2 footprint areas. And then the slabs and any foundations would be removed at the time of subgrade preparation for installation of the paver cells. There was another question with regards to what the definition of light storage is in the phase 2 area. And basically, we're defining the light storage as framing materials, stone veneers, light poles, fixtures, storage containers for plumbing, electrical, and HVAC supplies that would be typical of a construction site. There was another question with regards to where is the excavated material for the proposed building foundation going to be placed, or where is it going to go? When you take a look at the grading plan, and actually on SP3, it's got the same thing on there too. So the impact of that is that the building is actually going to require a net fill of 975 cubic yards. So there will not be any material being taken out for the construction of the foundation. For the excavation of the footings, the material would be cast somewhere internal to where the proposed building is, and then there would have to be the additional structural fill brought in to get the interior of the foundation backfilled and brought up to the subgrade for the slab of the building. And there was some other commentary from the public with regards to the permeable paver system being a complex system. And while it may seem that way to the layperson that may be looking at that, this is not a complex system. It's basically a stone reservoir bed. We have some perforated pipes on the various uphill and downhill side of the cells. The purpose of those are basically to distribute the flows through the cell areas and coming in from the pavement area as well as the roof area, and then also the overflow to get from cell to cell. We've also provided for inspection ports at each end of the pipe, and this is all pretty typical stuff, so there's really nothing complex that's being proposed as part of this paver system setup. There was also commentary with regards to the videos that showed some flooding for Stubby Plain Brook with regards to scour. And, basically there's no dispute that what comes down through Stubby Plain Brook does experience flooding events, since it's part of a special flood hazard area within that section. The reference video that was taken at a location upstream of our property. So with that being said, there is nothing from our proposed development that would impact Stubby Plain Brook at that upstream location where the video was taken. It's also worth noting that the stream channel at that location is on a much steeper grade up in that area. And it's much steeper than what's experienced once we hit the culverts down at Buick Avenue leading over to Cherry Street. So the significance of that is that the velocities would be higher in the upper portions of Stubby Plain Brook where the video was taken, as opposed to the velocities that would be occurring on the south side of Buick Avenue leading up to Cherry Street. There was also some questions with regards to the maintenance of the biofiltration area to be located on Buick Avenue. The maintenance for this biofiltration is going to lie with the city of Milford, as it proposed to be located within the public right-of-way and easement areas for Buick Avenue. The applicant is willing to assume the responsibility of that area. However, when we met with the Public Works Director and the City Attorney with regards to also some with the snow plowing issues and snow removal, the City Attorney basically indicated that the option for having a private party maintain anything within the city right-of-way would not be acceptable to the city for that point. See, there was another question with regards to the hydraulic and environmental loss from removing the Norway maples in the proposed biofiltration areas. And as Matt Poppett pointed out, the Norway maples are an invasive tree species and are recommended to be eliminated wherever possible. So we'll be doing that within the biofiltration area. So basically, you can either remove the invasives or let them take over the area. It's not a binary choice of take them or leave them. The solution is to remove them and replace them with native vegetation, which is what's being proposed and what's been indicated on sheet SP10, which is the biofiltration plan. And Matt will be speaking a little bit later with regards to that. So the depressed area that's going to be located within that biofiltration area will also promote infiltration and groundwater recharge, both of which are beneficial to the adjacent 122 Cherry Street wetlands. I believe Mr. Silver had some general questions with regards to the paver maintenance. So the plan on SP3 in our sequence of construction and maintenance, we're calling for weekly maintenance consisting of basically having a landscaping company taking care of their business by blowing off the grass and leaf that may have accumulated in the area from landscaping operations. And it's typically part of any routine care that's being done with that. Now, on a semi-annual basis, maintenance would consist of bringing in an outside company with mechanical machines or sweepers and vacuuming up of the pavers. This is typically provided by an outside company. There will be no equipment stored on the site for doing that type of maintenance. The sweepings that would come off of that are very typical of what the city does when they're taking care of their street sweeping operations, and would be disposed of by the contractor, similar to what the city does at that point. And then the contractor, when they're doing that semi-annual maintenance, if the vacuuming operation or the sweeping operations do displace some of the stone or the joint aggregate that comes up, that would need to be replaced at that time, which is a relatively simple operation. It's the aggregate is readily available through many of the material supply places, and it could be replenished very simply by spreading it out, brushing it with a broom, and removing the excess material. And then basically getting into additional maintenance, that would be basically the first step would be on a visual basis, where if sediment buildup is recognized or if there's other evidence of low infiltration taking place, and that could be recognized by water standing on the pavers too, which would be an indicator that water is sitting there for some period of time and not infiltrating down through that area. So with that, basically, if those types of situations are found, then the recommended procedure on that would be to pull in or to bring in a testing laboratory where they would run the infiltration test and make a determination of what the infiltration rates are going through the joints. And if the rates are low enough, then typically what happens is you would get into what's referred to as a restorative maintenance for those sections of the pavers. And that's basically where the equipment would be brought in for the removal of the full depth of the joints on the pavers. That material would be removed and then replaced with new fresh material to fill the joints in. And typically through most of the studies that have been done on these types of pavements, they find that doing the restorative maintenance will bring the infiltration capacity of the paver system back to close to 80% of the original installation. And everything with regards to the maintenance is more fully defined in the operation and maintenance plan, which was submitted as part of the application for, I believe it was the October 1st hearing. Now, there were a couple of questions that came from the commissioner with regards to the reduction of the water source to the wetlands on 122 Cherry Street and the impacts that that might have. So if we take a look at probably starting with Exhibit 3, if you have that up, do you have that one, Mary Rose? Okay. Yeah, so if we start with that one, what we can see is that we've got approximately 6.9 acres in the existing conditions, which comprises Sunnyside Court, residential properties along Sunnyside Court, as well as the subject property and some off-site properties over on Governor's Lane. So the crosshatch area represents that 6.9 acres, which is tributary to Buick Avenue. So if we bounce down to the exhibit number 5, that will show a little bit more, that will show a blow up of that area. Mary Rose will try to get that back here.
Yep. We'll just give Mary Rose a moment.
Yep.
There it is.
Okay. Yeah, so this is basically a blow up of that area of Buick Avenue. And what's significant with this exhibit is that the runoff that's presently coming across our site onto Buick Avenue is not flowing across 122 Cherry Street to the wetland areas. What you can see from the topography that's depicted on this map, which is based on the 2023 LIDAR data, is that there's a ridge line that runs through the 122 Cherry Street property, which prevents any of the surface runoff from Buick Avenue being able to sheet flow through or across the 122 Cherry Street property to get to the wetlands. So in essence, what happens is that ground and immediately adjacent to the pavement is acting as a curb, so to speak. So the runoff that's coming across from that 6.9 acres and our site is that it's going to come across, go across Cherry Street, hit that south side edge of pavement, and flow down to the low point towards Cherry Street, right in that general area there. And then when the water is high enough, it overtops that low point at that section and then discharges to the head wall that's immediately adjacent to it. So, you know, with what we're doing with the biofiltration area, we believe is going to significantly help with providing additional groundwater recharge and flow to the wetland system. Because that biofiltration area is basically going to run from the Buick Ave culvert all the way up to the end of the easement area. So by collecting that runoff that comes across Buick Avenue there, it'll allow it to infiltrate into the biofiltration basin, and through that infiltration, it will help to recharge the groundwater and supply a source of water possibly to the wetlands and also to Stubby Plain Brook. Because what was noted, I think Matt Pop made some reference to Stubby Plain Brook in his last presentation, that the brook itself is what's referred to as flashy, that there's not a significant base flow to the brook, and it's basically an urbanized channel that receives most of its flow during heavy rainstorm events. And I think, you know, from when we've had the site walks to other times when people have visited the site, that stream bed has been pretty dry. So I think with what's happening through here and the biofiltration basin, that's going to provide some beneficial needs to the wetland system itself. Now, there was also a question raised by one of the commissioners regarding the rerouting of Sunnyside Court drainage, and if any of that treatment or if any of that stormwater would be treated. And there's no treatment being proposed by the applicant for the city's stormwater drainage, which is coming from Sunnyside Court. So when we had that meeting with the city attorney and public works director, they basically acknowledged that the applicant on this project has no responsibility to treat the city's drainage. In a subsequent meeting also with the city engineer, he expressed that he had no interest in providing for any type of water quality treatment up on Sunnyside Drive, because it would be located off the roadway system, making the maintenance somewhat problematic for that. So I think that pretty much wraps up or summarizes the comments that came out from the public as well as the commissioner comments. So the last item that I'd like to go over with the commission is the comments that came back from Mr. Trinkus. They were received at a relatively late hour. They were basically provided to us yesterday, or we received them yesterday afternoon, so that didn't give us a lot of time to really get the response. So that's why, you know, we did work on the responses, and we did get those over to Mary Rose this afternoon for incorporation into this hearing and into the providing the documents for that. So I'll go down through Mr. Trinkus's comments and I'll provide our verbal responses with that. And again, Mary Rose does have our hard copy of that, or the email copy of our responses.
Mr. Weway, just to put it on the record, the board has received that. The agency has received it. Mary Rose did distribute it to us, so we have it. Mary Rose can show it on the screen. You can talk to the ones that are compelling. I don't think you need to do a blow-by-blow response unless you prefer to. It's your call.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have the items in writing. And I think to your point, I'll just hit the major points, because there are a couple of technical things in there which we provide the responses. I don't think we need the commission with the technical areas. But I think the main points is that Mr. Trinkus is alluding to that the design does not comply with DEEP's stormwater quality manual. We totally disagree with that. The permeable paver system has been designed in accordance with the DEEP manual, as evidenced by all the material that's been submitted as part of this application. He's also going on to state in item B that there's been no evidence provided which shows that non-point source pollutants, including total suspended solids, phosphorus, nitrogen, metals, and hydrocarbons, will be reduced prior to being conveyed to the existing wetlands and watercourse. And again, we totally disagree with this, as evidence has been presented throughout the course of these hearings, both from Oldcastle, the representative from there, as well as the University of New Hampshire studies and other materials that have been submitted into the record for evidence. And basically, it's just demonstrating that we have provided for the required retention volume, which is referred to as RRV, and it's based on the calculations that are part of the stormwater quality manual, and those have all been provided for in the documents that are part of this application. So in accordance with the stormwater quality manual, when using the recognized best management practice, which the pavers are, and once the required retention volume has been provided for, then the pollutant run reduction standards are also considered to have been met by DEEP. And as such, no studies or additional calculations are required to satisfy the requirements of the stormwater quality manual in DEEP. And as noted below, this has been confirmed in conversation and email with Christopher Stone of the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and a copy of that email is attached at the end of the review comments. So Mr. Trinkus goes on with comments 1 and 2, basically indicating that additional analysis and is required, and we basically come back and follow up with the statement that per the email from Mr. Stone and our interpretation of the stormwater quality manual, that those points are really moot at this point. There was also some discussion with regards to the test hole data and the infiltration testing and other elements that were within the report. Now, we did provide the infiltration test summary in our previous response to Mr. Trinkus, and that basically had in there the elevation where the infiltration testing was done, as well as the references to the bottom of stone elevation. So we have had a couple of changes since that last review, and in the 926 drawing revisions, we did make some revisions to the paver cells in harmony with the third-party reviewer and as well as your city engineer. And basically what we did is we elevated the paver cells up a little bit more and increased the slope of the paver cells also. So with that in mind, we also added one additional cell because of the additional slope that was there. It was more efficient to manage the reservoir stone by including one more cell. So the summary table that you're looking at here now reflects those revisions. So, there was some discussion in there that the infiltration testings were not valid because they weren't done at the proper elevations. And in accordance with the DEEP manual, you could see that the test elevations were all done either at or below the bottom elevation of the reservoir stone. So that fully meets the requirements of the stormwater quality manual. Now, there was also some other conversation with regards to the infiltration rates that we were reporting and submitting as part of the application. And again, our soil infiltration testing was done in accordance with accepted standards. In addition to that, both the city engineer and your wetlands enforcement officer were present at varying times during that testing. Now, Mr. Trinkus goes on to state that, difference based upon the soil profiles that were logged, the infiltration rate should have been based upon those. And while those generalizations are good for, providing some type of insight, the generalizations are no substitute for field testing. And that's what we've done on the site. We've done a number of tests. We've done a total of 7 infiltration tests on the site within the proposed paver areas. And when you take a look at the rates that are reported in the table, what we find is that for the 7 tests, there was the average infiltration rate was 14 inches per hour. And why that is somewhat significant is that the rate that we used in the routing calculations was 0.4 inches per hour. So this results in a very conservative design, and for the most part, it renders Mr. Trinkus's comments regarding the infiltration moot, in our opinion. So with regards to the deep test holes, he had basically 7 comments on those. I'm not going to get into those. We did provide responses to that, and I think those are all self-explanatory. Item number 11, I'll just hit on very briefly. I'm not going to get into the weeds with it, but there was a question there that in our routing calculations that for the various gravel layers, we were using a footprint area of 50 feet by 66 feet. And then when we got up to the actual paver layer, that was significantly different than what we were using. And there's a very simple reason for that, is that the paver area, for the purposes of the calculations, has an 11% open area. And that's basically comprised of the joints. So what we did with the calculations to account for that was basically to take that 50 by 66 area, and we reduced the area by the 11%, and that came up to basically taking that 50-foot width and narrowing that down to 5.5 feet. So that's where the difference is on that. And again, it's a much smaller area. And for all intentional purposes, the calculations, and this also gets into a couple of the other comments with 14 and 15. For all intentional purposes, the flows through the pavers, when you're using the routing calculations and the detention storage, that's never going to kick in until you get up to either the 50 or the 100-year rainfall event. So for the water quality storm event and for the more frequent storms up to the 25-year, again, everything is being fully contained within the paver system. And by way of comparison, for the water quality storms, I went back and took a look at the hydrograph summaries on that. And what we found is that inside of the paver cells, the water level never rises to more than 2.5 to 3 inches in those paver cells from the water quality storm, which is basically that 1.3 inches of runoff that comes from that area. 13, 14. And I think this kind of holds in with comments 13, 14, and 15. Same thing. So, I mean, that gets into a little bit of a technical analysis. So I'm not going to go into that. I think our answers are self-explanatory on that. And then I'll let Matt Pop speak with regards to the biofiltration area and the berm that's going to be located on the south side of Buick Avenue. And he'll give you a little bit further discussion on that. So with that, that basically will wrap up my comments at this point. Unless the commission has any questions, I'll turn it over to Matt, where he can give you a little bit better description on the biofiltration areas.
Thanks, Bob. Matt Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist with Environmental Land Solutions. Mary Rose, if we can get the SP10 up, That's the biofiltration basin at the planting plan that was on, so SP10. Um, Bob kind of, there we go. And this, if you could slide it back over again, there you go. So if you look carefully at this, there's two actually basins, shallow depressions in the biofiltration basin. And so there's two cells. So the water basically will flow from the bottom left there. It flows up the road, kind of goes, keep going up to the top right. So it kind of flows from west to east. So there's a cell there and there's a cell there again. There's two cells. There's kind of a higher point in the middle. And then once it flows from there, along the curb, there's actually a stone trench right along the curb. You can see the catch basin. So it's right up on the top right. There's a catch basin right in there. So the water kind of flows again from the bottom left to the top right, and it goes towards that trench there. The basin, if you look at the bottom right of this drawing, there's a detail of the what the basin looks like. It's a shallow depression. It has about 4 to 6 inches of material at the bottom. That material, which will be approximately a third sand, calling it gravel, a third topsoil, and a third organic matter, like compost. That's usually what is used in the basin bottoms. That allows for the sandy soil allows for infiltration. Again, the underlying soil is very loamy, so the water will flow through that pretty well. So that's the detail there. Again, it gets planted with native plants. There's a plant list just right above the detail shows those plants, mainly kind of deer resistant, shade tolerant plants. Again, several Norway maples will be removed and we're replacing them with a couple, two black gums and a number of again, shade tolerant shrubs. Uh, the other thing that was submitted was a non-native invasive plant management plan for the entire site, but it'd be mainly for this basin, and then for the wetland buffer be to the west of the existing house. That management plan has a list of species that we're targeting. There it is. Yep. Has a list of species that we're targeting, Atlantis, Norway maples, multiflora rose, which is out there, burning bush is out there, some privet, bittersweet. And it has four ways to control these plants. The first is by hand pulling, again, just pulling them out by hand. That's the easiest way to get them. The second would be by grubbing. Again, that's just if it's a multiflora rose, then maybe that has to get pulled out. But again, I think these plants would be small because they're not within the buffer area currently that would be managed. The third is just cutting the plants at grade. And the fourth, the last way to treat these plants would be by herbicide treatment. That would be if there was a large stand of invasive plants in one area, which currently, no, there isn't. So there was a large stand of knotweed. No, that would be probably appropriate method to do. The treatment will last for 2 years, 2 consecutive years, and it will in the plan has at the back of it, again, methods to remove each of these plants and how it would be done. So again, we submitted that and it's just fairly general. So again, I think the main thing is just to get the plants early on, routine, and when someone's cutting the grass, they should be in there looking for these invasive plants at that time. I think with the review, the Land Tech review and the William Kenny Associates review and the Strinkis's review, I think we have a much better plan. We incorporate a lot of those their suggestions into this plan, and in my opinion, I think this project is a very good project that will not have an adverse impact to the wetlands that are just off to the site against the flashy water course, very disturbed. parts of it have been filled, kind of a lot of invasive species in there. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Pop. Appreciate your expert testimony. At this time, Mr. Crusade, is there anything else that the team would like to present, or shall we move on to the next portion of the public hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, please proceed.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to anybody, anyone from the public that is wishing to speak in opposition based on the information presented this evening only. I would invite you to raise your hand and I will acknowledge you and give you the floor. Please keep your comments limited to the information that was presented this evening. Opening it up to anyone wishing to speak in opposition to address any concerns that were raised this evening. Mr. Silver, you have the floor. If you could just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good, thank you very much. Haven't done it, so used to being muted. And if my signal becomes unstable, please raise your hand and I'll just move my computer and myself. And certainly I would love to hear more from the LID letter and the expert information that was provided there and from Mr. Trinkus. So hopefully they're going to follow after me. And of course, Mr. Codispoti already addressed it, and maybe I'll wait to see if Attorney Green does have a chance to speak. So on the Codispoti letter of 10-9, so I'm dealing only with the issues that are recent. The overburden in cell 1 is in the wetland control area, so it is wetland related. Mr. Weway says it's not wetland related, but it is in the wetland control area. And the weekly inspections for rutting or loss of material, and especially of the anti-tracking pad that is in there, but not really mentioned as part of the overburden, will obviously require some acuity on people's parts to inspect. And I would assume that this commission would not want the contractor to self-regulate, but to actually have staff or others involved with those weekly inspections, because as the heavy vehicles do rut or lose material, it will affect the ability of the subsoil to absorb that groundwater coming from the detention system, and therefore flow out onto Buick and across over into the stream. On page 1 of Mr. Weway's letter, the slab and foundations of the barns to remain and therefore be removed later. This is part of the construction sequencing. It's answered in the letter, but it's not in their drawings. And so I recommend that this commission require that those slabs and foundations, as stated in the letter, are put onto the drawings, so the contractor who's doing the demolition of the buildings doesn't remove the slab and if foundations prematurely, because those will then get into the draining soils prematurely. So I recommend that as an action item, if in your motion, but also on the drawings. The 975 cubic feet of fill equates to anywhere from 46 to 61 tons of material. Mr. Weway kind of implied that that material that's being excavated is going to stay right on the pad of the building, that they're going to excavate the footings around it, and this fill pile is going to pile up in the middle of it. I think that's the implication. And I would be concerned that that excavated material does remain there and doesn't go into the phase 3 area, which is the protected area by the silt fence. So hopefully that silt fence is going to hold up to these contractors with backhoes and front end loaders. Page 1 of Mr. Weway's letter, the detailing of the paver system. He says it's not a wetland issue. I disagree again. That cell number 1 is in your wetland control area. And so therefore he said it's not complex. And yet he says, aside from the reservoir beds and other et cetera detailing. So he admits in a backhanded way that this is a complex system and that it does require careful scrutiny to make sure it's installed as detailed, and there are a lot of details, not just the layers of the different gradations of materials, but also of the 30 mil material, the dam that prevents the material from overflowing prematurely into the subsequent cells. Again, that's down in cell number 1, which is your control area, and I think it's a wetland issue. Page number 2 of Mr. Weiwei's letter from October 9th, the maintenance of the biofiltration area. You know, they admit that it can't be maintained by the applicant, but that the city in their easement is required to maintain it. And yet the city in their letters say it's not going to happen. And so therefore, what good is the biofiltration area if no one is going to maintain it? And so therefore, as the water spills over 5 years from now, 7 years from now, and that is a totally congested biofiltration area, it just spills over the crest and goes into Stubby Plain. I would urge caution that somehow the applicant and the city have to agree on maintaining something that is put in to protect the wetlands, and yet no one is committing to maintain it. And then again on page number 2, the sediment buildup and evidence of low infiltration that's mentioned in Mr. Weiwei's report. And then they would infill it if it becomes infilled with fines, etc. And there's the operative word, fines. They're not supposed to use sands or aggregates during winter protection because that fills up the system. Well, he mentions that the testing is done by a testing laboratory to determine infiltration. Who's going to spot this poor infiltration and admit that it needs to be tested? Who's going to spend the money for that significant expense to, one, track it, visually observe it, and then implement a testing procedure to make sure the system is operating the way you may be approving it? And so when and who pays for it is a question that is not answered. It's just answered by Mr. Weiwei. Testing is done by a testing laboratory. Who's going to call for that laboratory? And therefore, I suggest a bond as part of your motions be implemented to cover the engineering testing and the restorative maintenance, because otherwise you're relying on the applicant to maintain their old system down that sleepy little road, which no one really observes. Last one, or a few others. Page 2 from the commissioner, that curb that directs the Buick water to a low point, that catch basin, and then to the head wall. But that South Buick curb is detailed with slots to the biofilter so that that water does jump not just to the catch basin, but it jumps through the curb and into the biofilter area. And that this is the one that no one is committing to maintain. So in the letter to the city, from the city engineer, or to the city engineer response to that engineer, they admit that a 10-year flood goes 1 feet over the current elevations of the road and up to 1 foot 6 inches in the 100-year storm. This is something that's really marginally passable. Yes, fire department says 2 feet is no problem. How about the 60 residents and their 90 cars that want to move in and out of that during a six-hour flood period? There's going to be a lot of hesitation and a lot of damage to the wetland area as that water is pushed over the curbs and into the non-maintained biofiltration area. Another one, Mr. Codispoti didn't really respond to my issue that the first phase construction area is only 60 feet wide. And so staging all of that heavy equipment, the backhoes, the front end loaders, the concrete trucks, the concrete form trucks, the concrete pump trucks, all within that 60-foot wide area doesn't seem reasonable for such a large structure, especially if it's going to be constructed somewhat out of concrete on the lower levels, being a 5-story structure. And so therefore, I would look at that construction phasing of that 60 feet of width be very carefully analyzed. CODIS response to the city engineer on page 2, and because the city engineer hasn't had a response to respond to Mr. Weiwei's response, I guess I'll ask that on page 2, the applicant faults the city for the applicant being unable to build a road to the city standards. And therefore, they're kind of saying we're going to build a substandard road in a lot of different details because the city has not yet committed to grabbing more easement land. And so therefore a 20-foot road really makes you question on the accessibility through that roadway, as well as, is it legally a road? And it gets to the other question, Mr. Chairman, you already answered. If they're going to put in a sidewalk to connect these 59 apartments to Cherry Street, they have to come back to this commission because it obviously will affect the width of the road. And it really befuddles me that the revisions to the plans 3 times now have not shown that basic safety feature for pedestrians from this
Mr. Chairman, this is Attorney Crusaden. This is off topic of what the hearing was held open for, and it's not wetlands related.
The sidewalk in the wetlands area is related.
We're not proposing a sidewalk in the wetlands area.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
Mr. Crusaden, let Mr. Silver continue, please. We'll make that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I understand that, but it's been over 8 minutes at this point. So,
well, I mean, I guess I'm trying to answer all the technical points. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you're saying proceed. Okay. The 55-foot tractor trailers have an 80,000 gross load. That generates 3.5 pounds per square inch bearing pressure on the load and the drive axles. The SP3 shows the soil erosion plan where they're protecting that third phase, which is the major part of the parking lot where it's only light storage. But if you think about it, how does that light storage get there? It comes in on tractor trailers. And so therefore 35.1 pounds per square foot on those wheels are compressing that soil that has not yet had the overburden put onto it. And therefore that subsoil that we're counting on draining for the wetlands is not being protected. Oh, geez, last but not least, parking light storage, not protecting it. Land tech, probably just an interesting one is that when Land Tech's review on 10.8, their response is, maybe I should put it this way. Mr. Trinkus is clear that the applicant does not meet the 2024 deep SWQM. But if you look at Land Tech's responses, they say, yes, it meets our needs, it meets our expectations, but never does Land Tech ever say that the system is in compliance with the 2024 deep SWQM. Interesting admission. And it makes you wonder, how much does Land Tech really believe that this system will perform per deep standards as opposed to Mr. Trinkus's clear statement? And with that, I've talked enough. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'll back to you.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Silver, for your concerns and your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Mr. Green, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency and staff. Once again, my name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross, and I appear before you on behalf of Par Brook LLC, who owns the abutting property at 158 Cherry Street, and Spinnaker Brook II, who owns 122 Cherry Street. We are not going to be lengthy tonight. I'm sure much to the relief of the agency. This has been obviously a long hearing, but I just want to address, and I spoke to Ms. Palumbo today and assured her I wouldn't get into the sort of legal standards and that is something you'll get from the town attorney. But
I'm going to address that right now. We don't need advice from you about regulating the inlands wetlands. We already know how to do that.
And I apologize.
Please just stick to the feedback as it relates to the matter before us, and we will do our job.
Sure. And I understood. I was just making a record, and but I won't do that tonight. But I do have to address this notion on meeting the stormwater quality manual. And it is my understanding that simply detaining the water quality volume as is proposed here doesn't automatically mean that non-point source pollutants will be removed. And obviously, under the manual and an MS4 general permit, the water quality volume is the runoff from the water quality storm, which, as the agency knows, is the first 1.3 inches of rainfall as updated from 1 inch. That carries the highest pollutant load, and obviously holding that water quality volume, what it means is designers can manage water quality volume in a variety of ways through detention, retention, treatment. But the point is that I want to make is that only some of these mechanisms actually remove pollutants, and detention alone or some percentage of detention does not in any way under the manual amount to pollutant removal. And if the practice as is proposed significantly, the largest component of it is detention of the water quality volume, then the pollutants remain in the outflow, and I know that's obvious, and the release is delayed, but fine particles and dissolved pollutants, phosphorus, nitrogen, chloride, they're not effectively removed. Mr. Trinkus will get into this in a moment. So the pollutant load leaving the site may be nearly the same as what enters that detention, even if the full water quality volume was detained. And to actually reduce the non-point source pollutant loads, the water quality volume has to be treated or removed using practices that obviously provide runoff reduction or pollutant removal mechanisms. And again, infiltration, filtration, retention, or source controls. And the manual, I just think I want to emphasize that the manual emphasizes this distinction that volume must be treated, not merely detained. And I understand that there's some provisions that the applicant is relying on, but the performance criteria has to be based on the actual load reduction, not just storage volume. And in the storm quality manual in sections 4 and chapter 11, clarify that meeting the water quality volume requirement through storage alone does not ensure pollutant load reduction. Stormwater management practices must provide the water quality treatment through infiltration, filtration, or retention mechanisms designed in accordance with the manual. And obviously, chapter 10 of the manual deals with that extensively. And I think it would be appropriate right now for me to sort of call on Mr. Trinkus to follow up on my comments. And Mr. Trinkus, are you?
Yes.
Before you do that, is there anything else you'd like to speak? Because you have the floor at the moment.
I'd like to just follow briefly Mr. Trinkus and Mr. Kenny on this point.
Fine. Mr. Trinkus, go ahead. You have the floor.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Steve Trinkus. I'm a licensed professional engineer out of Southbury, Connecticut. I've been licensed since 1988, but I'm also an expert in the field of low impact development. I've been doing LID since about 2000 going forward. Attorney Green, has made this point, and there's a line in the manual, which Mr. Weiwei is citing, that says if you provide the volume, the water quality volume, the retention volume, you meet the desired pollutant goals by DEP. One of the things I said in my letter was, that's not factually correct, because if you take a dry detention pond, and this was an actual application I reviewed, the applicant said we're holding 1.3 inches of rain from the contributing area, and therefore we're going to meet the DEP goals. Except a dry detention pond has a moderate sediment TSS removal, total suspended solids, and is low for nitrogen removal, both nitrogen and phosphorus. So no matter how much water you would hold in a dry detention pond, the pond is simply incapable of providing the desired treatment reductions the DEP wants us to achieve. And that's why this idea of simply providing the volume in any practice is not based on fact. At recent conferences I've presented at, one in May by the American Society of Civil Engineers called the Environmental Water Resources Congress, was actually held up in Anchorage, Alaska. I talked to two PhD professors, one who used to be at the University of Auckland and is now working for a NGO in California. The other is a professor at Penn State Harrisburg. It's an environmental chemist, so she is very clued into water quality aspects. And I posed the question to them based on the manual: if you provide the volume, does it equate to treatment? And they flat out said, no, it doesn't. I also asked Jamie Houle, who's the director of the New Hampshire Stormwater Center, about 3 months ago when I went up to visit, the same question. Jamie said in ponded systems like a wet pond, a constructed wetland where you have a permanent pool of water, there is quite a bit of truth because the water quality volume is held within that pool. And it's adjacent to the soils, it's adjacent to the vegetation, and these environmental systems is what reduces pollutant loads. When you get into these underground systems, based on the tests by Codispoti, they have silt loam, they have some sandy loam, they have some sand and gravel. Silt loam is a very slow draining material. That's why I cited when you're getting 17 inches per hour in a silt loam, something doesn't seem right. It is a fine-grained particle. It is not a fast-draining material. On the flip side, some of the holes where there was sand and gravel, they had 39 inches per hour, which is very quick for sand and gravel. Well, while sand and gravel can infiltrate a lot of water, the problem is the pollutants don't get attenuated because the water simply moves too fast through the sand and gravel. So there is no reduction of pollutant loads. It's great to get rid of water if it's clean. That's why when you do underground infiltration systems in a coarse-grained material, you need a high level of pre-treatment before the water goes into the ground so that you don't, pollute the groundwater, basically, as far as that goes. There's plenty of documentation out there. Our EPA has language on, from their website, that simply say, yes, simply providing the volume doesn't equate to treatment. University of Minnesota, or actually Minnesota's Stormwater Manual, makes a similar statement. If you go back to the 04 manual, which was the first one by DEP, the water quality volume had to be captured and treated, quote unquote. And that goes to Attorney Green's point that not only do you have to capture it, you have to adequately treat it. And the treatment is what we're missing here. So we're not getting treatment. The permeable paver system is set on top of multiple layers of crushed stone. Crushed stone is an inert material. It does not provide treatment, of the water moving through it. It does transmit the water, but there is no treatment occurring.
Mr. Trinkus, you've made your point. What else do you need to convey to the agency for consideration?
Well, I think the main point is with inadequate treatment, you will have increased pollutant loads being directed into the groundwater, which ultimately will get to your wetland systems because they're downgrading of this site. I think the other, one last point I would make is in the routing analyses by Codispoti, they are claiming storage above the paver system. Well, there's no curbing above the paver system on each downhill edge. So there is no storage above them. You can't include that in a hydrologic model. It also is showing in their routing analysis that the larger storm events, the 50 and 100, are going to discharge. And if that's discharging on the surface, you've got a problem because during the winter, a film of water will freeze on top of the paver stones and you get black ice. The other issue that has not been discussed is the impact of chlorides. If we're not using sand on the paver systems, people are using either rock salt or de-icing agents. De-icing agents do not go away in the environment. They stay in solution and they move rapidly through the soil. They can accumulate in the soil, they can accumulate in the groundwater. So by not using sand, which increases the maintenance of a paver system, using de-icing agents creates a significantly environmental impact because nothing removes the chloride ions from de-icing agents.
And just to put a point on that, Mr. Trinkus, that use of those kinds of compounds would even further support the notion that detaining that water quality volume, that those dissolved materials will be discharged from the system in the same concentration as they went in. Is that correct?
That's correct. Pollutants come in both particulate, which combine to sediment, fine sediment, silts and clays, but they also come dissolved. And the dissolves move through the water. They just stay in solution and keep following the groundwater table.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if members of the agency have any questions for Mr. Trinkus.
We may.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like to say for the record, Mr. Trinkus? And
thank you.
No, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And next, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call on Bill Kenny for some brief remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Bill Kenny. I'm a senior land use ecologist with William Kenny Associates in Fairfield. I'm a professional wetland scientist, soil scientist, and landscape architect. I did review an earlier version of the project in August and submitted a report, and based on my review, made some conclusions that it was my professional opinion that the project would adversely affect wetlands in the stream, the brook that is south of the property, both in the short term and in the long term. I want to say that I've reviewed the revised documents that have been submitted, and there have been some improvements made, but I still conclude that there will be adverse impacts, and particularly with the there's a drainage pipe, 24-inch pipe that's proposed to be connected to the end wall where the road crosses the brook. The existing road crosses the brook, Buick Avenue. That is immediately adjacent to the end of that pipe is right on the line of the brook and the wetland. And it is immediately adjacent to the private property. So it's a very tight location to be working in. And so I have concerns that there's going to be trespassing issues and how do you build this without impacting that stream? I believe there will be disturbance, and I believe that Mr. Pop and the soil scientist, I forget the soil scientist that did the wetland mapping for the consultant, but they also concluded that there would be an impact. They concluded that it won't be significant, but they do conclude there will be an impact. There is. I was out and visited the site today. There's water in the stream today.
Mr. Chairman, this is beyond what the hearing was left open for, as Attorney Kersaden.
These are comments that I made in my last, and the applicant submitted revised documents to address comments that I made in my previous. It
was left open, Mr. Chairman. It was left open for Greg Podleski's comments and comments from the neighbors, and the applicant or the opposition team was not present at the last meeting. So I'm not sure if they're clued in on what this hearing was left open for, but this is beyond the scope of that.
Mr. Kersaden, I appreciate your concern. We're here to we're gonna hear Mr. Kenny's comments. I do have a follow-up question for Mr. Kenny. The report that Mary Rose has shared with this agency received on October 9th, 2025. Is that what you're speaking to tonight?
Myself? Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And in that report, do you identify the concerns that you've just voiced relative to the potential adverse impacts to the wetlands?
Yes, in the report that I issued in August, or the
no, not in August. relative to your response to the latest information that was discussed and the reason, to Mr. Crusaden's point, the reason the hearing was left open.
I have not issued an additional report other than the report I had in August.
Okay, that presents a difficulty because this meeting is continued from the last meeting, limited to the information that we described in the meeting minutes and for the record. So I would appreciate if you could, be very specific about what your outstanding concerns are relative to this application.
Okay.
We've had now 4 public hearings, so
Sure. So the road's being doubled in size. I had concerns about runoff from that. They proposed a biofiltration basin, the applicant. From what I could tell, there hasn't been information provided of the sizing of that. Is it going to be able to handle the water quality treatment volume? So you can't conclude how effective it will be if that information hasn't been provided. Perhaps I've missed it, but I haven't seen it in the documentation. They also show a new catch basin in the road. It's immediately adjacent to the property line. It's a component of the discharge from the biofiltration basin. Pipes from the biofiltration basin are being connected to this new catch basin. Catch basin is going to be about 10 feet deep. It's right against the property line. I'm not sure how you construct that without trespassing on the neighbor. And if you can't have that catch basin, then how does that affect the design and functioning of that biofiltration basin? And no outlet protection is shown for that pipe at the head wall of the brook. So that's based on those items and based on Mr. Trinkus's continued conclusion that the stormwater treatment system for the overall development will not function as required to provide the required stormwater treatment. It's my professional opinion that the project will have an adverse impact on inland wetlands and watercourses.
Okay, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Kinney.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Kinney, is there anything else you would like?
Yeah, just briefly, and I understand that Chair's comments earlier, and I understand the intention of the agency. I would just ask the agency pointedly to seek an opinion from the town attorney on this issue, on the sort of the issues in the manual that we have raised in light of the applicant's submission this evening on sort of the adequacy of having stormwater quality volume sort of, and how that relates to other sections of the stormwater quality manual that require, once again, that meeting the water quality volume requirement through storage alone does not ensure pollutant load removal. And I would direct the city attorney to chapters 4 and chapters 11.
And I'm sorry, but you keep doing this. We don't need you to tell us to consult our city attorney. We are a trained agency. Just express your concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no further comments. I want to thank the agency for your patience and for hearing us this evening.
Thank you. Back to the applicant team, please. If you have any rebuttal to the opposition, I'm assuming there's no one speaking in favor. There's no one here. Is there anyone speaking in favor? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Crusaden.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. For the record again, Kevin Crusaden. Mr. Weway or Mr. Pop, do you have any responses to what was just discussed?
Yeah, I think just very quickly, Attorney Green was making reference to detention. And there's a fallacy in that term that what we're providing is retention, not detention. And this kind of leads into what Mr. Trinkus was also referring to in terms of a dry detention basin. So what this paver system is doing is it's retaining, it's not detaining. It's retaining the water quality volume and the water quality flow that comes into that system. It's not leaving it. The way it leaves the system is through infiltration and recharge of the groundwater table, both underneath the system and then leading to other areas off site. So there's a significant difference in the definition of those terms of detention versus retention. So what they're saying is that when you're using detention, all you have is a storage volume and that's it. Since we are doing the retention, the treatment is taking place within the soil matrix as well as the gravel and the joint material that is part of the paver system. Contrary to what Mr. Trinkus is indicating, the studies have shown, both through the UNH as well as from the presentation of the Oldcastle representative, is that there's significant treatment taking place within the joint material, where the suspended solids are getting tied up within the joints, and then through the suspended solids, that also allows for absorption of pollutants to bond to that system. And that's why, you know, that there's treatment being provided within that joint system, and that's why that joint system does need the periodic maintenance and renewal and rejuvenation. So basically, I just want the commission to understand the difference between detention and retention. And as Mr. Trinkus pointed out, the detention on a dry detention basin, he's absolutely right. That provides absolutely no credit in terms of the stormwater quality manual as to providing any treatment of the stormwater runoff. One comment with regards to Mr. Kenny, since he was not present, I don't believe he was present at the last public hearing, and he probably did not read any of the responses to that. But in terms of the outlet protection, we've demonstrated through the calculations, and they've been reviewed by your third-party reviewer with Landtech, and they basically concluded with us is that there's not going to be any erosion potential coming out of that 24-inch pipe going into the head wall. So I think that speaks to itself, and those comments were included in our responses back to Landtech, and I think confirmed by them at the last hearing. And with that, I have nothing further to add.
Okay, Mr. Kusaden, is there anything else that your team would like to address during the rebuttal stage? Otherwise, we'll move back to the.
Not unless Mr. Pop has something to add. Mr. Pop.
Matt Pop, I was just going to say exactly what Bob Weway just said about we addressed the 24-inch diameter pipe being connected to the head wall and the impacts, or the lack of impacts, at the last meeting, and I think nothing else needs to be said on that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, at the end, I would just like to do a brief summary when you've had before you just close the public hearing, just for a minute or two.
Sure. Yeah, we're not at that stage yet, but I will give you that opportunity.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite those in opposition to address the rebuttal comments. Mr. Trinkus, Mr. Green, Mr. Kenny. Who would like to speak?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Trinkus.
Go ahead, Mr. Trinkus.
Mr. Chairman, the only comment I would make is, you know, I'm not confusing detention, retention. My point of using a dry basin is that the dry basin is incapable of providing a high level of water quality treatment because the design is not meant for that. It's meant to simply hold water. And that goes to the point that any other practice that is holding water that doesn't have a high degree of treatment built into the system doesn't provide the treatment either. The gravel layers you may trap some fine sediment on top of it, but there is no treatment provided in the gravel layers. You know, it just flows right on through and moves, you know, down into, you know, the bottom of the system. So there is no treatment in the gravel layers, and that's well documented on field monitoring data.
Nothing further, Mr. Trinkus? Does that conclude your comments?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the opposition? Is there anything Mr. Kenny would like to say?
just briefly that I'm not sure if the sizing calculations are available for the biofiltration basins and whether those have been properly sized. Again, maybe I missed that information.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. I will comment that all of the information and all the plethora of revisions have been posted on the City of Milford website as and when they've become available. So last call for any opposition comments. Okay, hearing none. Moving on, Mr. Ryder. I'd like to now kick us off with your comments and observations, and if you could perhaps address some of the feedback, especially the pointed comment from Mr. Silver relative to your assessment of the controversy relative to the retention and detention and the stormwater manual standards. If you could lead us off with your review, that would be helpful.
Good evening, Tom Ryder, senior ecologist with Landtech with offices in Westport, Connecticut. I have, like I said, we have provided two sets of letters of comments and responses have been entered. So really, I just have two comments on engineering and a couple on environmental that I'd just like to clarify for, well, basically for housekeeping purposes, just to close the loop on a couple things. Our engineering comment number 2, excuse me, and engineering comment number 4 basically said that the responses have been adequately addressed. However, there was a problem with the plan. I think it was SP2, that it didn't show some lines, and they were mentioned in our comments 2 and 4. We have since received, apparently the plans had those lines, but when they were printed, they didn't, Mr. Weway's plans didn't have those lines turned on. So they have turned them on for us, and we've received those plans, and all the information was presented correctly, and those comments are now closed. So it's not a major deal, but I just wanted to close the loops on that in case you guys were reading our comments over after this meeting and noticed that there were still 2 comments that required additional information. Just wanted to clarify that all that information has been provided and our comments have been addressed. From an environmental perspective, we have a couple comments in that we had requested and this has kind of been addressed, but I just want to have a couple comments on it. We have requested a invasive species control plan. That plan has been provided. It's a fairly general plan, but it does cover everything. My comment here, though, is that I would request that it be referenced in the construction sequence as for, so when the contractors are doing this work, they'll come down and they'll see that there is an invasive species plan. My experience has been that everybody looks at the plans, but not many people carry the reports out in the field. So if there is a reference either on the biofiltration plan or the mitigation plan that references there's an invasive plan, and also if it's in the construction sequence, that will alert contractors that there is a invasive species plan that they need to follow. Another point is that we did receive the biofiltration plan. We understand that it has adequate growth and infiltration media, topsoil, crushed stone, etc., with a compost, and is proposed to be planted with what we believe to be appropriate vegetation. And we reviewed the soils in that area and found them to be suitable for the needs of the biofiltration. We also received a wetland mitigation plan as requested in an environmental comment number 10, and found that it provides benefits over the existing nutrient uptake functions. It provides additional nutrient uptake functions over existing conditions, so it's an improvement over what's there now. As for our comments about the stormwater quality manual. Rob Pryor is not here tonight, but I have spoken with him about this. And we believe that the plan does comply with the water quality manual. I asked him that specifically today, and he has agreed that it does comply with the manual. I'm not sure if our wording in our reports reflected that. I guess it was mentioned that the wording was a little bit off, so I did want to clarify that we do believe that the project complies with the manual.
Great, thanks, Mr. Ryder. Is that the end of your preliminary report? I think the agency will probably have some questions for you, but is that all you?
Yeah, that's the end of what I wanted to say. Again, it was just some clarifying things. We've gone back and forth on this for a number of different reports on that. So it really just was clarifying a couple of the loose ends that needed to be stated.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Ryder, for all of your help and Rob's help as well. I'm going to open it up for the commission members to ask Mr. Ryder of any questions that he just presented or questions that you have based on the testimony that we've received. And I think the focus of our question should be relative to whether or not we have all of the information we need to close the public hearing. So, Mr. Matthew Connors, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is for Mr. Ryder. Just in regards to Mr. Silver's comments on maintenance of the biofiltration system, do you think, in your expert opinion, that would require a maintenance plan? Typically, these systems are checked maybe once a year for buildup of debris. Is that the case in this system? Do we know?
Well, I think a maintenance plan has been provided. That's kind of one of the things I have not reviewed as thoroughly. More Rob Pryor was the one who reviewed that. In my opinion, these systems do need to be maintained. They're a little more, I wouldn't say, they require more action than the regular systems. So yes, they do need to be maintained on a regular basis. I believe that the applicant has responded by that and provided an adequate maintenance plan on that. And I believe the comments that we had for that have been adequately addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Thank you, Mr. Connors, for the question. Great question. Any other questions, Mr. Connors? You may have several, so.
He had already answered the previous one in regards to the stormwater manual, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. How about others on the commission? Questions for Mr. Ryder or the applicant? You can ask questions of Mr. Weiwei or Mr. Ryder. I'll give everyone a moment to think. Everyone's received a high volume of information, so should there be any questions that you may have, any doubts that you may have, now is the time to ask them. We will have the opportunity to deliberate, but relative to any questions you may have of Mr. Pop, Mr. Weiwei, or Mr. Ryder.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Field.
What type of construction is the building? Is it wood frame or steel?
Who is that directed to? The applicant, Mr.
Yes.
Weiwei?
Yes.
This is Attorney Crusaden. Bob, do you have that answer?
Yeah, I'm going to defer that over to Jeff Gordon. He's more familiar with the building construction. I think, yep.
This is Jeff Gordon. I do believe it's a light gauge metal, but I can't attest to that. I don't have detailed architectural plans. That's just the information we have from the architect.
Okay, was it a steel structure where it would require an oversized crane?
I couldn't address that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Field, do you feel like that's a question we need answers to before we close the hearing, and what's the relevance to the wetlands? Just help me understand.
Mr. Chairman, it's Kevin Crusaden. My client, I forgot to mention, is also on this call, and he's just informed me it's wood frame. So I just want to get the information to the record.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Field. Any other questions, Mr. Field?
Not this moment, other than just for discussion between the commission members. They've done a pretty good job in answering all the concerns I had.
Great. Okay. Mr. Ritchie, you're next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I do commend the applicant for making the improvements. However, my main concern is still the roadway in the wetland review area, and how that roadway and the effects of the roadway are going to affect the water course. That is my concern, and has been my concern throughout this whole hearing. We're hearing different sides, different opinions. But just that roadway is concerning, of the way it's going to be built, how it's going to drain, how the snow is going to affect the roadway, how runoff's going to affect it. And the totality of the project, I feel, is going to affect that water course. I know there's different opinions, some for and some against. But I need to be persuaded a little more that there's going to be no adverse effects to that water course. That's just my only concern. That's really all I have to say.
Is there a question that you would like the applicant to address?
Yes. Sorry. How do they feel that this construction with the proposed mitigation plans there for the drainage into the water course is? There's no monitoring. There's going to be no, obviously the city said they're probably not going to maintain it. Is this going to fail in 5 years, 10 years? How can we ensure that this is going to be a long lasting protection for that water course? That's my concern. And maybe get that addressed. If we can, I don't know if we can.
I guess I would just invite Mr. Kousaden to discuss whether there's any more information that you would like to add relative to this concern that's being raised.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ritchie, if this is the right time, I would ask Bob Wee to start. If you can, Bob, can you weigh in on that concern or question?
While Mr. Wee is coming off mute, I would just comment that there are a lot of concerns and considerations that we're going to have to go through and deliberate. I think the question that you've got me thinking about, Mr. Ritchie, is what's the sort of data, what's this sort of new information, additional information, clarity that we might need to deliberate that concern? Because I do think that's a healthy concern, but the question is, what's missing from the record? What's missing from the information that you've been privy to that you might need clarification on?
Future plan, any type of future plan, how it's going to be maintained. I know the city said they're not going to maintain it. For all intents and purposes, the city attorney said that the applicant can't maintain it. So how could we ensure, either through bonding or monitoring or something, that that's going to be maintained for a period of time in the future?
Okay, I see Mr. Wee is off mute. Are you able to speak to this, Mr. Wee?
Yeah, I think I'll just give some generalized comments. So when we take a look at Buick Avenue right now, and again, we've got about 6.9 acres of watershed area that's presently draining the Buick Avenue. And right now, there's no treatment being provided in that watershed area. Under the proposed plan, we have the biofiltration basins that are going to be incorporated on Buick Avenue. That watershed area that's going to be tributary to Buick Avenue at that location is being reduced from 6.9 to about, I believe it's about 0.34 acres. So I think you have to ask yourself is, what's being proposed better than what's there today? And I think, based on the information that's been submitted into the record and in the drawings and in the mitigation plans, I think the short answer to that is yes, that what's being proposed will provide a benefit to the wetland system over what's presently there today.
Mr. Ritchie, did you raise your hand again?
Yes, I did. I understand that, and I do commend the proposal from you, Mr. Uwe, and the applicant, improving the wetland area. But right now, that road isn't really traveled upon. If you have, say, 100 cars in the property, that's just a generalization. How many times do people go in and out of a driveway or drive the car on the roadway? That would be my concern for the wetlands for the future. There's oils from that car, salt from that car, anything from those cars driving up and down that roadway. How's that going to adversely affect the wetlands? That's my concern for the future monitoring. I know you've done a tremendous job with the property, with the paver system and everything, and I do commend you on that part of it. But just that roadway, that travel roadway portion and the monitoring of the water course, that is my concern for the future, to protect the water course and not adversely affect it for future generations.
Yeah, Mr. Ritchie, I think the general concern has been clear. I would just invite either Mr. Pop or Mr. Ryder, maybe in that sequence, to comment and to just sort of distill out whether there's any additional information that either of those experts feel we need in order to deliberate this concern.
Good evening again. I'm Matthew Pop, landscape architect. Just to remind you that where the existing house is that is going to be maintained, we are restoring or enhancing the wetland buffer. I think it's 5,300 square feet of lawn area, which we're removing. Again, the lawn area, it's not maintained greatly today, but it could be in the future. Typically, a well-maintained lawn would have pesticides and fertilizers placed on them. So that will not occur in the future. You can see the plan before you, the hatched area right up there. Again, that borders the water course. So all that buffer area that we're proposing, filter stormwater runoff that sheet flows across that site. Great for wildlife habitat, improved the wildlife habitat of that wetland buffer. Again, I think you maybe just look for impacts to the wetlands and water courses. I think maybe just look to your consultant Land Tech, and I don't believe that they found any adverse impact. There were some things that they wanted that could be incorporated into a permit condition, such as having the invasive species management control plan referenced on this plan, or stick that in the construction sequence, which I think is a great idea. But again, like currently, as Bob Weway said, the roadway in, there's no treatment of runoff now. The asphalt's kind of broken in pieces. So I think that roadway currently is an adverse impact to the water course. So again, I think this project improves that, the runoff from the site. And again, if there's any questions further, I'm here to answer them.
Mr. Pop, a question that you just sort of generated for me. Relative to this application and what you presented, is there anything that you've done in your experience that's substantially similar that you can testify to similar success? Or, and I guess the follow-up question is there anything in your expert opinion that there would be inherent residual risk? Like what I hear Mr. Ritchie asking about is, down the road in the future, after all these improvements are made subject to approval and conditions and which may or may not happen, but what's the residual risk and what information does this agency need to consider in that regard, if any, that either needs to be presented today at this moment or has already?
Well, as far as enhancing wetland buffers, such as shown on this plan, I probably do one a month, like in Greenwich. Almost every wetland application has some area like this where there's a lawn area adjacent to a wetland or water course that gets enhanced by plantings and placing, establishing a meadow adjacent to a water course, demarcating it with buffers. But I mean, that's a barrier, stone barriers. As far as in the future, on some projects, the drainage manual in Greenwich actually requires requires developers to submit just a very, very, very brief monitoring of the water quality basin. It may be just, we visited the site, we removed litter today, no sediment observed, or if there is sediment observed, we removed it. Again, it's probably like, one page. The landscape contractor could do that. I don't think they need to hire anybody, professional, and that gets submitted to so usually in Greenwich it gets submitted to the town engineer.
Okay, thanks for answering that question, Mr. Pop. Mr. Ryder, did you want to comment on this?
Yes, there's a couple things I'd like to add. One is that I wouldn't say we were harping on, but one of the things that we were concerned about on this property was, the wetland enhancements. We were promoting that, and the biofiltration, we were promoting that, and those have been responded to. But I think what the commission needs to understand is the reason I was promoting or recommending the wetland buffer up there is that right now we have a certain functions. What the wetland enhancement plan does is it's creating a meadow. Now, meadow has a lot higher primary productivity than what is there now. What you're looking at is some invasive mature trees are coming in there. It's kind of a shaded area. You don't have the understory. What you're going to be getting is a opened up area that's going to have a lot of primary productivity in there. But there's also something that hasn't been mentioned in here, in that the the mitigation plan opens up at the end. It says that this can either be mowed once a year and maintained as a meadow, or it can be left to natural succession and allowed to go back to a mature canopy. That really hasn't been discussed, and I think that's probably something for the commission to consider. My opinion here is that I like the meadow. I like the way that has increased filtration. I like the higher primary productivity on it. I like the diversity of it, but there's nothing really wrong with it going back to its natural succession either. But if given the opportunity to ask my question, I would probably prefer for the meadow. The other one is the biofiltration and the monitoring of it. That's something that came up earlier in my head, and I didn't get the opportunity to mention it. Mr. Pop had just mentioned it, and it triggered in my mind, is that for both of these, both the biofiltration and the wetland mitigation areas, there should be some type of monitoring that goes on periodically, especially for the meadow. If it could be maintained as a meadow, or even if it's allowed in natural succession, there should be a periodic understanding that says, okay, these plants are doing well, they're functioning well, they're succeeding well, they're establishing well, they're coming in, etc. Once that happens, you probably don't need to monitor it as much, but during the establishment of it, I think that's necessary. For the biofiltration basin, I think that needs to be maintained a little longer. I think that, as Mr. Pop just mentioned, but it was something that I failed to mention earlier, is that there should be some responsibility by the applicant to say, look, the vegetation is doing well here, or I'm seeing some scour here, or this is filling up and needs to be maybe maintained a little bit, or something along the lines, just so that the commission can understand, or the staff member, Mary Rose, or whoever is receiving these reports, gets to understand that says, hey, look, this is still functioning, or hey, this needs repair. We need to contact the applicant or the owner at this point, and make sure that that is addressed so that the functions can be maintained.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ryder. Hearing that discussion, Mr. Ritchie, do you have any other follow-up observations around information that you might need to make a decision? Do you have everything you need, or do you feel like there's information that we haven't received that we need to receive?
I don't think so. Mr. Ryder did clarify those points. I think those are very good points that he did mention.
Okay, thank you. How about for other members of the agency? You've thought about this application, you've participated in this lengthy hearing. Mr. Connors, do you feel like we have all the information to make a decision?
I just wanted to make through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment. Can we include that language in the motion to include a detailed maintenance plan of the biofiltration? Is that possible? How does
Yeah.
this work?
Yeah, of course. That's part of our standard deliberation process. We can always condition any approval with such conditions, and we typically do that. So, but relative to questions that we may need answered before we close the public hearing, let's focus on that. Let's wait to deliberate during the deliberation session. Mr. Jim Connors, I hear you trying to speak. Please unmute yourself and advise. You've been at this for many years. What do you say? You're muted, Mr. Connors.
Wait a minute. Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm okay now.
Yep.
Okay. I think it's been well covered by a lot of experts, and I don't think we can do much more with it. It's as good a plan as we're going to get.
Okay, Mr. Black, do you have anything to say? Ms. Valvo, you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I don't think everything there's quite a bit of information on all sides, and I appreciate everybody putting the time in to give us as much information as possible. Certainly a lot to think about.
Great. How about you, Ms. Valvo? Do you feel like you have all the information you need to begin deliberations?
Yes, I do. I think they've covered a lot. It's a lot for us to still, discuss amongst ourselves, but yeah, I think that it's all been well presented in my opinion.
Okay. And Mr. Field, I'm going to come back to you. You had a question or two before. You're always good with questions. One last question to you. Do you feel like we have all the information to make a deliberation? Do you feel like there's anything that we haven't received that we should be asking for?
No, I think the engineering firm did a very good job in the follow-up. I was impressed, along with what they're going to do for the wetlands on the road. The only questions I'm going to have is for the commissioners in terms of requirements we may be looking for them to move forward. But other than that, no, I feel they've really adjusted everything, and it was well presented.
Great, thanks, Mr. Field. How about Mayor Rose? Do you have anything to offer by way of guidance from past experience hearing this discussion?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, from past experience, you've reiterated, I want to make sure everyone knows the agency's deliberations will be on what's in the record. You will be able to ask questions of myself, Mr. Ryder, and Mr. Pryor, and the city engineer, as we are staff to you. But there's no more information that can come in from the applicant. So we want to be sure that you have everything you need upon which to make a decision.
Right. Mayor Rose is amplifying what I've continued to say here. Once we close the hearing, there's no more questions that can be posed to the applicant. Make that very, very clear. Mr. Black.
Yeah, just one question for the applicant. So we talked about the 24-inch pipe going into the head wall. I know in some of the reports it was mentioned, Mr. Gradwell asked about that being filtered, and I believe in some of the responses the same because it's coming from the Sunny Court that there's no need to have it filtered or no responsibility to have it filtered. Is that just kind of something that we're going to say, we're not going to filter it? I guess my question is it a concern of ours that water coming from Stony Creek through that pipe is not filtered going into that head wall?
Okay, maybe I could ask Mr. Ryder to comment on that, to the extent that you could clarify whether you feel like we have all the information or if there's follow-up discussion that we want to have now with the applicant team.
I believe all the information has been presented, and I don't think there's really too much else that can be discussed on that topic.
Mr. Chairman, it's Attorney Crusaden. I can shed a little bit more light on that discussion with the city attorney and director of public works if you like.
Sure, Mr. Crusaden, go ahead. You have the floor.
So yeah, thank you. Just real quickly, we had several meetings with I've had at least 2 meetings and a lot of conversations with the city attorney about this issue, as well as a meeting and a half, I think, with the director of public works. One of the meetings was joint with Bob Weway, and all 4 of us were in the meeting. And so we, just for the record, we had offered to put in a drainage system. The city has a right to drain off of Sunnyside onto this property. And, we had offered to put in a connection. We had offered to, I think, even put in a system. And it was, I want to just back up a little bit. Mr. Podleski was also involved in other conversations with Mr. Weway about it. And the very first comment from the city attorney and the director of public works, when we had these conversations based on concerns that were brought up during the public hearing for that runoff from Sunnyside, from our very first public hearing meeting, were, well, that is the city water, and we can't make other private property owner treat that water. We just have a right to drain on their property, which that right to drain is being honored by the design that Bob has established. And then the further comment, and Bob could add to this because he had the conversations with Mr. Podleski, the city engineer, was that even if a system, some type of treatment system was put there, the city would not maintain it because I think it was outside of the city right away. So, I'll leave it to the experts about the treatment of the general, I guess, status of the water leaving Sunnyside and being piped down and into the wetlands. But so I want to make it clear that we did make several attempts to try to resolve that issue, and it came from the city that they weren't interested in treating it. And I'm not saying this in a flippant manner. But they realized that that there's no mechanism to make a private property owner treat the city runoff. So we have tried to explore that and ran that down. And Bob, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Mr. Crusaden, just before Mr. Weway goes, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you for indulging us on that.
Sure.
Yeah, no, this is Bob again. I think Attorney Crusaden pretty much summarized it pretty well. And, when we had the meeting with staff, Mary Rose was there as well as Mr. Podleski. We went through the options in there with the stormwater, and, Mr. Podleski basically said he has no interest or desire to provide any treatment on that water. So we kind of wrapped it up and left it at that point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weway. Mary Rose, do you have anything to add to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The city's position, as I understand it, is that we do not necessarily have the equipment or want the responsibility to maintain another drainage system. We clean our catch basins per MS4. We do that work, but to add another stormwater treatment in another maintenance thing for the city to do was not something the city Public Works Director was willing to take on.
Okay, thanks for confirming that, Mary Rose. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. Was there anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. I have 2 follow-up questions. First to Mary Rose and then to Mr. Ryder. Mary Rose, Mr. Silver previously expressed some concerns relative to the non-wetlands comments from Mr. Weway in his letter dated, I believe it was October 8th. And he mentioned the control area. I believe Mr. Silver may have mentioned or been implying or intending to convey that we have this upland review area. So my question to you, Mary Rose, is relative to the upland review area, do you feel like in your experience, in your expert dealing with many of these applications years over years, do you feel like there's any additional information that we need to put on the record that we don't have on the record relative to, what our purview is relative to the upland review area? And do we kind of have any position relative to this non-wetlands comment sort of pattern in Mr. Weway's assertions?
Dear Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to share the map. Oh, we are sharing the map, sorry. This line that I'm showing here across the map is roughly the 100-foot upland review area from the wetlands and Stubby Plain Brook. So this is the area the agency regulates the wetland. We have the authority to regulate the upland review area as that impacts the wetland. If we feel that the area outside the wetland is going to impact it and can show that is it going to impact it, it's not a may or it could or a likely, it has to be a direct impact. We can reach beyond it, but you have to show that this is going to impact the wetland.
Great, thank you.
So the area Mr. Silver was speaking of would be the anti-tracking pad. This is the wrong plan, but in this area, which is within the review area, that, you know, we need to review what's happening upland and how things are going in and out. But our main focus is the wetland and the upland review area.
And Mary Rose, do you feel like, just adding to that, and then I was going to go to Mr. Ryder, do you feel like there's any residual risk in relation to the overburden concern that was raised by Mr. Silver on numerous occasions? Do you feel like there's any residual risk that we haven't addressed or information regarding that risk that we might need to ask the applicant to address this evening?
As I recall it, the residual risk concerns were mainly with failure of the overburden due to transit. That has to be maintained, and anti-track pads need to be maintained. We regularly have contractors do that. We sometimes have to chase them to do that. So suggestions that it be monitored regularly and logged, reported, and sent in, which can be a condition, are valid, because sites get busy, little things get forgotten, and that's why we have weekly heavy storm monitoring reports to make sure that the applicant is not forgetting their commitment through our any permits that we might give. Questions about the quality of the overburden are for the city engineer. You know, how much it needs and not would be for an engineer, would not be for me.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Mr. Weiwei, tagging onto that, and I'm going to come to you, Mr. Ryder, in a minute, but I'm just going to finish this thought. Mr. Weiwei, do you feel like your plan addresses the point Mary Rose just spoke to?
Yes, I believe in the form that it's in, it does. And again, with any type of S&E plan, I mean, these are living documents that may need to be modified, changed, or updated during the course of construction, because again, it is a moving, it is a living and breathing thing that's going to take place out there. So I think, you know, in terms of ensuring that the monitoring is taking place and that somebody's got a good handle on that, okay, if the mud tracking pad needs some supplement, that gets taken care of. If the overburden is starting to get rutted and so on, that's getting taken care of. So I think the oversight is going to be important to ensuring, you know, the successful implementation of the plan. You know, so I think, yeah, that would pretty much be it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weiwei. Mr. Ryder, inviting you to add on to this discussion. You know, you obviously sense the question, the nature of the question. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or do you feel like there's any information we need to receive that we haven't received?
My opinion here is that a lot of questions have been asked. A lot of questions have been answered in a thorough response, not only from from the commission, from the applicant, from us, from everybody. There's been a lot of information in here. So I don't think there's any more information that can be provided. I think all the appropriate questions have been asked, and they have all been answered by the appropriate people. So I think I feel fairly confident about what has, transpired over the last couple meetings here. And the second thing that I was going to mention, but both Mary Rose and Mr. Weiwei mentioned that, so it's probably less important now, but that monitoring, inspection, and understanding what's going on in the field is key. I do a lot of ENS inspections. I do a lot of site monitoring, And I'm not proposing that I do this now because I don't need to be involved in that per se, but I'm saying from expertise that you can't redo something. It's the idea that everybody understands what is out there, what needs to be done, how to do it before they do it, do a kickoff meeting and then say, look, these are the areas that are restricted. This is the area with HES. This is the PSI that can be allowed on this area, and that those plans are followed. I think, both Mr. Weiwei and Mary Rose Palumbo have just mentioned that, but I think that's key to any project being successful is implementing the plan.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Ryder. I couldn't agree more with your earlier sentiments. Mr. Crusaden, with that in mind, I'll give you the floor to address the agency before we entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I just wanted to touch on one thing before I summarized. There's been discussion, and it's been in Mr. Weiwei's responses, and even the recent one, about the biofiltration and the city attorney's position about Buick Avenue and who can be responsible for what. Those conversations were, just so the commission understands, were in the context of we had offered to take over full responsibility for Buick Avenue. And that was, a non-starter for the city attorney's office for a variety of reasons. And it's full responsibility as far as maintenance and all of, everything, snow removal. So the care of the biofiltration or the maintenance of the biofiltration is still, that was not discussed with the city attorney. So that's not the full responsibility of taking over the road, is my point. And so that could still be something that the applicant has volunteered to do that, as part of a condition of approval. And that would be something that we would have to work out with Department of Public Works and the city attorney's office. So I just wanted to put it out there that it's not, we're not locked in a legal limbo where, the commission wants us to do it and the city says we can't do it and the city says that they don't want to do it. So there is a path forward for that. So I just wanted to make that point. And then, we really appreciate the commission, the neighbors, the other experts, the third-party reviewers. This is about 4 months of information for you, Mr. Weiwei and myself and the applicant team have been working on it for well over a year at this point. I wanted to point out again, just to bring it kind of back into focus, and Mary Rose already started that with the upland review area. In the upland review area, we're talking about 2 parking spaces and part of the entrance drive is what's in the upland review area, as well as some work along the roadway. And I would like to respectfully state that there is no statistical evidence or data that has been submitted by any party that indicates a significant adverse impact to inland wetlands. I would also like to respectfully submit that there's been multiple comments and evidence in the record and testimony that these paver systems are recommended as the best management practices in not only in Connecticut, but in multiple states. And that was even further affirmed by Mr. Stone's email with Mr. Weiwei today. Mr. Stone of the state of Connecticut, professional engineer, stormwater section of DEEP. And that was a 1015 email that was attached to Mr. Weiwei's reply that was displayed on the screen earlier tonight. We are compliant. You've heard it from your third-party reviewer with the 2024 Stormwater Quality Manual. The applicant has made great strides, and Bob has spent a lot of time on this, as Mr. Pop and Mr. Gordon as well, attempting to answer all the questions as timely and satisfy the comments from the other experts and from the commission members and from the neighbors as well. We've worked with city staff on this, as you've heard tonight. I think that is essentially it. I don't need to get into any of the weeds. I think the commission has heard the rest of this. And then just for the record, if there was something that was submitted that the hearing was not held open for, I respectfully reserve the right to raise that issue if there is an appeal one way or the other based on this decision. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank the commission and the agency for your time. And I do agree that, all of the comments have made it a better project. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krusaden. Appreciate your testimony here and your support. At this time, I'd like for the agency to, I'd call a motion to, to close the public hearing. Unless there's any last minute questions that we I think we've pretty much asked and asked. So could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, Mr.
I'll second it.
And it's been seconded by Mr. Jim Connors. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Lisa, roll call vote, please.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. The motion carries. The public hearing is closed. Mary Rose, if you could, I believe, just remind me, I believe we have 35 days from now to make a decision. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have 35 days from the close of the hearing to make a decision. I believe that 35 days brings us to 11/19/25.
Great. Thank you very much. And we do have a meeting, I believe, in 2 weeks, which would be what day?
That we have a meeting on November 5th and also on November 19th.
Okay, great. So I would entertain a motion to resume deliberations on this matter at the next meeting. Reason I'm suggesting that and like for the agency to support that is we have Mr. Bradwell and Mr. Bahave who have been in attendance in the public hearings and will participate in review of this meeting, and they will participate in the deliberation process.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, through you, I'll make the motion to extend it deliberations to next meeting.
Okay, great. Mr. Ritchie.
I'll second that.
And a second by Mr. Connors. The only other discussion I would just say is it gives us all an opportunity to take and digest all of the information we've received this evening, and to really formulate your expert views for the deliberation process pursuant to our education, and we are all trained. So any other discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matt Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We will deliberate at the next meeting. With that in mind, we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, that's public comments. Would anyone like to make a motion for literally a 2-minute recess just to get a bio break in?
I make a motion for a 2-minute recess.
I'll second.
Hear that? Second it, and we are in recess. I'm sorry, Lisa, roll call vote. Sorry.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Falvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Okay, motion aye. Motion carries. We will make a recess. Everybody stay on the meeting. Just put yourselves on mute and be back promptly here in 2 minutes, please. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. Mary Rose, are you back? Mary Rose, let us know when you're back.
Sorry about that. Trying to get. Hold on 1 second. Are we all set to go?
Yeah, we're out of recess. Let's move on. Guys, let's just jump right into, well, public comments is officially next on the agenda. I don't see anyone here from the public that's not here to present on an application. But if there is anyone raise your hand now. If anyone's here from the public, there's a Trista and a Dan. Okay, moving on. We're going to jump into item IW 250041. That's 1 Bayshore Drive, map 29, block 558, parcel 5. That's 1 Bayshore LLC. We're here this evening. We've received this a couple meetings ago. We had a site walk. What questions does the agency have of the applicant? I do see Ms. Rispini in the attendance, in the meeting attendance. Thanks for being here this evening. And Mary Rose, maybe just as a customary process, can you introduce this item? I've kind of done a very cursory review.
Sure. Sorry, I'm trying to get the map up. I'm overloaded with the other maps. This is IW 250041. It's 1 Bayshore Drive. It is a proposal to raise and rebuild a single-family home with construction and grading within 100 feet of a wetland and water course in the South Central Shoreline watershed. Excuse me. And it's proposed by 1 Bayshore LLC, which is represented by Jennifer Rispini. They're proposing to remove the existing structure and build a flood-compliant home that better meets their needs. Site's located adjacent to Cowpen Meadow Creek and it has both inland and tidal wetlands. It does have a Connecticut DEP structures dredging and tidal wetland filling permit. They did submit updated documentation at our last meeting. I'm sorry, for the after the last meeting, and that is in your notes. And if it will load, will be on your screen. Ms. Rispini is here this evening. I had put in my notes, there was a number of clarifying questions and where you can find the answers to those, where I found the answers to those questions. There were 2, I think, that were outstanding. Clarification on the sequencing plan to ensure that the contractor has to follow the plan for the protection of resources. They did clarify their sequencing plan. We could potentially have conditions to require pre-construction meetings to ensure the contractor understands and follows the plan. And the other question was, what are the plans to protect the resources should the existing concrete wall fail during construction? So let me try to get those plans up for you. Nope, site is down.
Mary Rose, you can just speak to the last question. I think we've all reviewed those matters that have been circulated to us. Can you just speak to that last question?
Sure. The
what if the wall falls?
Right. So the concern is, and it was raised by Ray Gradwell in one of the last meetings, that should the wall fall, potentially things in the wetlands, the inland wetlands, could be impacted trying to rebuild the wall or get back to the wall or restore things. And so what are the protections for the little piece of inland wetlands that's next to the rear of the wall? And this will not load, and I apologize.
Yeah, don't worry about the documents. We have access
Okay.
to them. I wouldn't sweat that. We know where it is.
Gotcha.
I think the question in my mind is, and Ms. Rispini, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could please identify yourself for the record after I ask my question, is In your representation of the application, do you believe that the plan adequately addresses the question as to whether or not there's an adverse impact to the wetlands if that wall does fail during construction? Can you address that question for the agency?
Okay. I believe we have followed all the instructions and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen. Our intent is not to make it fall. So we're going to try everything possible, but we don't know exactly, what could happen, but we're going to try our best. I had a contractor out there today, but in order for them to give me any information, they need to see all the guidelines and all the approvals before that they can even consider it.
Yeah, can you just say your name and address for the record, by the way?
I'm sorry, Jennifer Raspini, One Bay Shore Drive, representing One Bay Shore LLC.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, relative to that last point you just made, I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe just can you clarify what your contractor said?
Well, I had the contractor, we had him out there today and we showed him the site, and he wanted to see all the documentation that was approved and what is the city is looking for.
What certification does this person have? And what qualifications do they have?
Well, he's building here in Milford. It's Peter Olson, and he's doing one that's similar to my property. I believe it's I'm not sure. It's over by.
Okay, we don't need to know that. That wasn't really my question. My question. It's a little bit strange that he's asking for information. It strikes me that, what we need to, I guess, let me just be clear. What we need from you as the applicant is we need assurances that you will hire the qualified experts and you will provide the plans which you're presenting to us. So anything that's presented in our plans that
Right.
we're approve or deny, that's the evidence that we need. And that will then flow down to your chosen contractor, and you'll be responsible for ensuring that he or she adheres to the construction sequencing.
That's correct, and we plan to do that.
Okay. Mayor Rose, is there anything you'd like to add to that discussion?
There's a number of things in the responses that are left to the builder to provide the plan, the sequencing plan, to provide the plan for maintaining the drainage system and maintaining the wall. And I fully get that those things need to be, it can vary. There's a number of ways to do them. Mm-hmm. And so Ms. Raspini and Mr. Raspini have stated that their plan is to get that from the proposed builder. But what we need to know is how that's going to relate to our approvals. If they come up with something that isn't in compliant, the preferred method for their construction, the only thing they can do to make this work doesn't work with our approvals, it would have to come back. I would suggest, if the agency was inclined to approve without having a plan on how that area would be protected, that there'd be requirement to submit that before they take the permit out, so that we can review it, and that there'd be field meetings with this contractor to make sure that they fully understand it. Permit conditions would be made part of contracts to make sure that no one can say, oh, no, nobody told me that. I've had experience where I've got on the site and either the site's been flipped in the original approval, people aren't on it anymore, we've got somebody else, they fire all the experts, and you're working with a team that has no knowledge of what's proposed and is just plowing blithely through to get done what they want to get done. So we want to condition it so that the Raspinis can build their home they're very engaged with making this home on the site, but we also want to have conditions that ensure that it can be built safely to protect the wetlands.
Great, thanks, Mary Rose. I like your recommendations. Sounds like the applicant, Mr. Ruspini, you're looking to agree to those.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, we discussed that last week together.
Great. Mr. Field, Mr. Connors, I'm going to lean on you. Mr. Black, what questions do we need to ask of this applicant that we haven't already? And do you agree that we have all the information in order to render a decision about this?
Well, I'm looking at Mr. Chair, through you, I'm looking at the plans right now and the ones that were stamped October, I think it's 9th. I'm scanned back and forth. So in one cross section, it shows the pre-existing wall and it shows the new wall. And that's an S20, and that was dated October 9th. Then you scan down to S22, it's the same thing. Then you scan down to S-4.0 and has a cross section, and it looks like they're trying to. It's completely different than the other two. It basically looks like they're taking the existing wall, and they're going to anchor, 3x6 L shape, probably steel to it, and then it looks like I don't have a scale here, and there's really not a dimension. It says 12 inches, so it looks like they're about a foot off the pre-existing wall, and they're going to create their new wall. In there, but then I'm trying to cross-reference that with the plans you're looking down. Nothing kind of really, matches. So I do agree with Mary Rose that, they basically have to come in with a more extensive plan of, why this house hopefully won't crash into and become real waterfront property, So, and this is just to protect them too. Everyone yeses everything to death to get something approved. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to actually do it, sometimes they don't really follow directions, or this is a very tough case situation here. I've never seen anything like this before. And it's with the tide is and everything like that, it's going to be very tough. And I just want to make sure they're protecting themselves. And then, because if it does fail, they are going to be back here, and it would very well affect the wetlands. And that's what we're here to protect, the wetlands.
Thank you, Mr.
Me too.
Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Jim Connors, did you have anything to add to that, or? You're on mute, Mr. Connors. You're still on mute.
Unmute. Okay. I agree with Buddy 100%. This is a very tricky construction project. And my gut feeling is the wall is going to collapse. Because it's very, very weak at this point right now.
What mitigations do you feel like the plan needs to address in that situation?
I don't know, be truthful.
Okay. I know we're not here to engineer the plans, but okay. Mr. Black, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm along with Buddy. I was looking through it, and we got one section showing the CMU wall with the foundation wall butted up against it, and then there's another section with looks like a 12-inch buttress between the wall and the CMU, the existing CMU. So yeah, I'm not really sure how that works there.
So can you guys help me, being a non-engineer, non-technical person? Mr. Field, are you saying that there's inconsistencies or there's insufficient detail? Which is it? Inconsistencies?
Insufficient detail. I think what they did was they originally came with the upper plan. I think it was 2.0. And then, we had concerns about this, and it looks like, and I didn't really look at the previous plans. I mean, I did, but I don't have them side by side.
Right.
So it looks like they possibly could have added this section, but didn't readjust the other sections. So, this isn't a regular foundation you dig down 4 feet and, oh God, if we have to move it over 6 inches or 3 inches, we can do that in the field. First of all, you don't know what's underneath the ground. They did boring tests, but that's in the front yard. and they could change in 30, 40 feet easily, and, unfortunately, and it's going to be on them because this is the type of project this is, and it very well, it's kind of a discovery. It's going to go along as you go along, you're going to discover new things. Some are good, some could be not so good. And as long as we have a plan, basically, like the 4.0, that's a good start. That, okay, tells us, okay, this is how we plan on holding it in. And it's like, okay, but you've got to get underneath that crawl space. You have to do all that. Everything works on paper, but when you start getting out in the field and practicality, sometimes it's just physically not possible. And that's my major concern. And that first floor, a lot of that weight of that house is probably holding that wall in. So you get rid of a lot of that weight, you might have lateral pressures that wall just goes, and I'm not an engineer. I can't make suggestions because if I do and they go after it and they say, oh, I can't make the decision. I can only give practical information. I can't give engineering information.
Correct.
That's their responsibility.
Correct. And it's definitely not
Yep.
what we're expecting of
Buddy,
you.
wouldn't you feel there's a lot of water pressure against that wall?
High
And
tide there is.
It's going to be quite wet in that crawl space under there.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me ask a question just in a different way. So
Sure.
Are we, from an agency perspective, are we of the volition that, even if this was a perfectly laid out plan, we still need the pre-construction meetings, we still need the extra TLC that Mary Rose was suggesting. So even if the plan were 100% solid, because it sounds like there are some concerns about the existing plan.
Right. So if an engineer came forward and in his opinion, yes, this will work. Okay, we can only go by them. We're not engineers. So if we approve it according to that plan and it fails in the field, well, then we have to address. You can't always do coulda, shoulda, woulda on a plan because you don't know how it's going to react. You'd like to anticipate it through engineering how it will react, but I've never seen a project like this in my entire 40 years of doing this where it's this precarious and this sensitive. So, sure, it works on paper, but if it fails, they will be back here. And at that point, they'll have to deal with it that much more. If it does, I'm not saying it will.
In the real world, it's a tough job.
I wouldn't do it, but that's besides the point. That doesn't matter. They're here for the wetlands impact. And
well,
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but what I guess I sort of redirect the question to Mary Rose, and then Mr. Ritchie, I'll give you the floor. What if we condition the application, grant the approval based on what you recommended, right? Thanks for sharing the plan. Would if there was a failure, wouldn't there have to be emergency measures defined in the pre-construction meeting in the eventuality that there was a failure? Here's what has to be done, because they're not going to be before us in the sense that they're not going to wait for a meeting. Mary Rose, that's a question for you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, one of the concerns of the city engineer and I is that there is a pre-construction meeting, but there is some kind of methods or something on the plan. The builder isn't going to have time to call the owner to say, hey, what was the contingency if it all fell in? Or what was the contingency if we had full moon high tide storm where there was significant, water pressing against the structure? They're not going to have time for that. And so we need to be assured that they've got some kind of plan, that they've got a box nearby with all the erosion controls they could throw at it to try to protect it. Right now we don't have that. We don't know that. And I understand the Raspini's need to leave it to the contractor's methods and means because they don't know how the contractor's going to do it. But unfortunately, neither do we. So there needs to be a balance to understand that there's enough information on the plans that the contractor fully understands the need to protect this area and the no-touch zones. The no-touch areas would need to be staked. which is more high stakes for tidal wetlands than for us. Tidal wetlands has a fine if you intrude. So I'm sure the applicant's very, very aware of that. But the plans have to have enough information for the builder to be able to know what to do in certain situations. They always have the plans on site. They don't necessarily always have the conditions and the procedures manual.
Mr.
Mary
Connors,
Rose,
I'm sorry, just 1 second. Mr. Matthew Connors, I'm going to give you the floor in a minute. Just before you go, Mr. Connors, what is the engineering view of this plan, the latest plan, Mary Rose? Mr. Pogutsi.
Mr. Pulaski. He did review it, and I can grab that as soon as I.
You go ahead, Mr. Jim Connors. You had a question.
my feeling is if that wall goes, the river is going to take over that piece of property instantly.
Depending
And then
on
what do you do from there?
That becomes a unfortunately for our response, it becomes a tidal response. DEP scrambles and they have jurisdiction because it's land of the state. So we don't, that's.
Okay. Mr. Nick Ritchie, go ahead.
I don't know if it's in our, I'm not an engineer, but I've seen them on other projects where they install a temporary bulkhead to protect the wall in case it does fail. I don't know if we could require that or that's not in our purview.
Through you, through Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ritchie, they can do no work waterward of that concrete
Okay,
block wall.
that solves that question. All right, sorry. Just trying to help.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Not for nothing, the applicant, might want to reach out to a contractor that basically lifts houses because they're the ones that deal with the foundations that are down by the beach that are in situations like this, and they have to replace it with foundations. Now, granted, usually you don't have the ocean next to you, but they have a lot of experience in this area. And this isn't a job for some guy who's, I put foundations in every now and then. This is for someone who, this is what they basically do.
Yeah. And, Ms. Raspini, you can take that as a suggestion. It's not something that we really, I think it's a helpful suggestion, but relative to the engineering report, Mayor Rose, are there outstanding items that need to be addressed that would preclude us from following your recommendation if we were going to approve this as presented, conditioned upon this extensive pre-sequencing plan that needs to be established? What are your thoughts on that?
I believe the majority, I'm trying to call it up, but there was an update right before I left today and everything is not playing nicely. I believe the latest memo from the city engineer I have is 9/23. At the time, a number of his items were to CAM or zoning items. They should be on, they should be on the screen right now.
Yep, we see the report. Yep.
Okay.
I had a difficult time pulling it up myself, but I guess the conclusion is we're ready to entertain a motion to proceed here.
One thing I'd like to point out, this city engineer and I both had concerns about the removal of the dirt bag, which is a sedimentation and erosion control product at the rear of the site. And if we look at, there we go, the Fairfield engineering plans that were revised on, I think the 24th of September, they've moved that detention basin up front. It will make things trickier. Again, they have a very small area to work from. In a meeting with Mr. Raspini, he stated that construction would be all from the demolition. would be from the front of the site and by hand. They're removing this by hand from the front of the site. As they move along, they would start the shoring up and the structural control of the existing concrete block foundation. It's very important that they keep that foundation where it is per DEP. And it is right on the coastal jurisdiction line. So that was the plan, he said, to the city engineer and I, and in a meeting also with Ms. Raspini, that is their proposal for how they plan to work. He did refer any failure of the walls again to contractors' means and methods. They wanted to see what their contractors would come up with.
Perfect. Okay, Mr. Connors, go ahead.
My question was in regards to the motion and the requirements or the conditions. So I'm trying to read through here. Do we need a requirement for the pre-construction meeting, or is that part of it? And then obviously we want to add on to prior to pre-construction meeting, an emergency wall response or a wall collapse response should be submitted. Would we say that? Do we agree on that?
I'd entertain a motion to that effect. That's what Mary Rose recommended. Let's proceed.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
If everybody comfortable with that before I make the motion.
Yeah, go ahead and make the motion. We'll discuss it.
All right, Mr. Chairman, after duly considering all relevant factors, I move to approve application IW. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong. I'll start over. Sorry, there's so many pages today. All right, Mr. Chairman, after duly considering all relevant factors, I move to approve application IW-25-0041 One Bayshore Drive based on the plans entitled Jennifer Raspini of parcel designated as number 1 Bayshore Drive, situated in the city of Milford, County of New Haven, State of Connecticut, by Flanagan Surveying and Mapping, 4 sheets as follows: 1 of 4 survey of property, dated 12/12/2017, revised 3/28/25, 2 of 4 demolition plan dated 6/27/21, revised 10/8/25, 3 of 4 site plan dated 6/27/21, revised 6/20/25, 4 of 4 construction and site plan details dated 9/25/22, revised 10/8/25. Jennifer Raspini, 1 Bayshore Drive, Milford, Connecticut, site and erosion sedimentation control plan by Fairfield County Engineering LLC, 2 sheets dated 2/27/24, revised 9/26/25. Proposed new house, Raspini Residence, 1 Bayshore Drive, Milford, Connecticut, by unattributed 2 sheets, A1 and A2, dated 3/10/25. 1 Bayshore Drive, Milford, Connecticut, by Raspini Consulting Engineers, Inc., 7 sheets, S-1.0, S-2.0, S-2.1, S-2.2, S-3.0, S-4.0, S-5.0, dated 4/17/23, revised 9/25/25. The information in the file and presented this evening for the following reasons. The applicant's proposed wetlands impact have been minimized as much as possible due to the need to raise the existing house and deck location over the inland wetlands to build an elevated flood compliant house, with conditions including
Something happened, Mr. Connors.
We lost you.
Oh, sorry.
Muted.
Where did you hear up to?
I think you were talking with conditions including.
With conditions including a requirement for a pre-construction meeting, and prior to the pre-construction meeting, a plan submitted for the response of a possible wall failure. A draft calculation for the construction bond must be submitted for review a minimum of 60 days before taking out the permit, 45 days prior to taking out the permit. The permittee must submit a construction plan for review and approval, including stabilization, method for the existing concrete wall minimizing impacts to wetlands, contractors' means and methods for working on the site, installation, maintenance, replacement, and disposal logistics for dirt bags and sedimentation basin materials from the site, staging and stockpiling plans or location off-site stockpiling locations, proposed plans for dumpster removal before anticipated flooding or high water event.
Oh, you got mute again.
The permittee must submit the name of the licensed environmental professional who will do inspections and reporting weekly and after precipitation events greater than 1 inch in 24 hours. 30 days prior to the start of construction, a meeting must be held with the city engineer and wetland compliance officer, owner, permittee, project manager, and site contractor to review the MIWA permit conditions, the construction plans, including construction sequencing, the erosion control plans, the dewatering plans, offsite storage areas for the project, plans for any necessary emergency or replacement erosion and sedimentation controls necessary for the site must be identified by the site contractor. Soil erosion and sedimentation controls as outlined on the plans and in the CTDEP 2024 erosion and sedimentation control guidelines must be installed and maintained on the site until the property is stabilized. Wetland notification to be placed on the as-built to give notification to property owners that permits are required from the MIWA to work on the site. Documentation to be submitted to the MIWA office prior to bond. Sorry, hold on. Compliance with the city engineer requirements. These conditions are to be made part of all contracts and subcontracts for the demolition and construction work on the property to ensure that workers are aware of and abide by the approved plans and conditions. If the permittee/owner chooses to change the professional consultants and contractors on the project, they must notify the agency 15 days before the change. The professional consultants and contractors must meet with staff and review the permit conditions before working under the permit to ensure that they are familiar with and understand the permit conditions and requirements. The site contractor responsible for the erosion and sedimentation control must do inspections daily after high tide and in preparation for and after storm events. Issues noted with the erosion controls must be addressed immediately. The permittee must retain a licensed environmental professional to inspect the erosion and sedimentation controls weekly and within 36 hours after a 1 inch or greater precipitation events. Issues noted with the erosion controls must be addressed within 24 hours of the inspection. Signed reports must be submitted to the MIWA office. A permit construction bond to be calculated must be posted with the MIWA for S&E controls, plantings, and an as-built showing finished 2-foot contours, wetland line, and locating all site structures. The permittee must submit a certification by the project engineer that the complete project meets the design intent of the approval prior to bonds being released. When dewatering is required for development of this site, the erosion control inspections by a licensed environmental professional must be conducted and submitted daily during dewatering to ensure protection of the resource. The contractor and party responsible for the erosion and sedimentation controls inspections must conduct and submit daily inspections of the sedimentation basin/dirt bag during dewatering to ensure protection of the resources. The permit is issued 10/15/25 and expires 10/15/2030 unless otherwise provided by statute. That is my motion.
Thank you. The motion has been made by Mr. Matthew Connors. Well done. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Valvo seconds. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, Lisa, roll call vote.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Brenda Magnan.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Ms. Verspini, good luck with your project. I'm sure the office will be in touch and you'll be in touch with the office.
Thank you. And I had no idea you guys would stay up this late volunteer. I really appreciate this. Sincerely.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being patient as far as being in the queue here after a lengthy public
I
hearing.
learned a lot tonight.
Good
I
for
think
you.
you guys were just being, pushy before, and I realized like, oh no, they're really asking a lot of questions, and I learned a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good luck on your project.
Yes, good luck.
Thanks.
We appreciate you coming.
When I finally build it, you guys will be the first ones I'm going to put on top of the rooftop. We're going to test it out together. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Okay, new business. We do have, Mayor Rose, if you want to just flash up the agenda, we do have item IW 250054, which we received at the last meeting. We're not taking any action on this evening. Moving on to item G, consideration of the minutes from the previous meeting on 10/1, which was the public hearing and the regular meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes as presented?
I'll give you that motion.
Great. Mr. Connors, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Black, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, Lisa, roll call vote.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors.
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Abstain.
Julie Valvo,
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to abstain as well. Apologies.
Julie,
Aye. Aye.
Buddy Field,
I have to abstain because I wasn't there last week.
Brenda Magnan.
Aye. Do we have enough to pass the motion? Who's my parliamentarian?
What do you got there?
There's
so.
7, so it's 4 to 3.
I did listen to it on YouTube if that counts afterwards, but I don't think it does.
That does count, actually.
It does. So you don't have to abstain?
It does?
Yes, that counts.
Okay, so aye then.
Okay.
All right. Didn't know that. Sorry. Thanks.
Okay. I believe, so just to confirm, Lisa, how many did we have voting in favor of the motion?
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we only have 2 abstaining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 5 in favor and 2 abstaining.
Okay, so it passes. Thank you.
Yes.
Wanted to make sure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the attention to the minutes that you did and you always do. Thank you. Okay, Mary Rose, you have the floor on staff.
All right, we're going to do a quick staff report. I don't know what's going up with the digitals tonight. Thank you for your time and efforts on these applications. I know it's been long and we have, another big application coming towards us, but I don't believe it's as complicated. The CACUIC, tonight's the last call. If you want to go, please email Taft and I, and we will get you registered. We just need to know which classes you'd like to go to, and those classes are listed in the notes. Lula, land use training, there's 2 more sessions. Tomorrow's is on alternate site walks and public hearings. Somewhat timely. And next week's is on conflict of interest, bias, predisposition, representation by commission members, and social media and FOIA. Those are hour-long free lunchtime webinars that you can watch right at your desks. Does anyone have any questions for us? Me.
Would there be recordings of those that are available, or do you have to actually listen to them at the precise time that they're scheduled?
Lula usually has recordings. I will check into that and find out.
Okay, great. That was my only question.
Okay.
Any other questions for the staff? Mary Rose. Okay, moving on. Chair's report. Echo what Mary Rose said. Thanks everybody for the continued deliberation, attention, energy, commitment, etc., dedication to this process. Next meeting, November 5th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You have it.
Second.
Thank you. Lisa, roll call vote.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Brenda Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned just 10 minutes before the witching hour.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Have a
Good
good
night.
night.
Blessing, we're all set. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Lisa, I'm gonna need